Well, once again, it's time, my friends, for another meet and greet. We're Southern Fried and nationwide, so hang on to your seat. Look around, here's what I found. I guess you'll never know what you'll see on the Southern Fried Podcast Show. Yeehaw!
And we're back. And we're back. Been keeping up with the football game a little bit as we went along the way. What a great game in the snow. You got to love it. Great Thursday night atmosphere. We got Southern Fried Podcast. We got football game going on. We got interesting stories going on. Rob has been checking in a little bit with me on this evening, and I hope you are doing well. This is our I Remember That show, and do these from time to time and kind of take a look back at points in history and some things that we remember, whether we lived through them or we just remember the story. I actually lived through this one. It was a very troubling time as we think about uh, the end of one presidential administration and the beginning of another one, and the hope of a new day. And there's a lot of similarities, although it's certainly not exact. There's a lot of feeling as I lived through these two events. There was a lot of American pride had been hurt. The frustration of seeing our people being paraded around 444 days. The hope of a new tomorrow, a new administration. And finally, the failed, well, not finally, but then the failed disaster, the disaster, I should say, not just failed, disaster of a failed rescue attempt. And then finally, the release of the hostages. We're going to look at a couple of images from that time. There's a lot of things at play. Of course, the Americans were supporting the Shah of Iran. He was sick with cancer, came to the United States and was getting some treatment there, I guess, along the way. And then eventually was given, left the United States and was given sanctuary in Egypt where he died of cancer. The images were hard. The students, this supporting this this uprising, this revolution, if you want to call it that, and them demanding that we bring him back for trial, and of course the violation of our embassy and its staff. Those were hard images. It's not something we as Americans very kindly to. And as we go into a new, we're awaiting a new presidential administration, we have American citizens who are being held hostage right now. Again, it's a different situation, same kind of animal, but we see the same thing. We see American pride just damaged with everything that's went on. We have pride in our nation, but we just around the world, people have this feeling that we've lost that edge. We've lost. I mean, who puts up with that? Who puts up with our people being held hostage? And not one jackleg thing seems like being done about it. Where's the intensity? Where's the pressure on? We let our people go. And that was the feeling in 1979. People were sickened by what was going on. People got tired of seeing the news images of these people, taking our people hostage, parading them around, burning the American flags. And I remember that. I was, coming up on I wouldn't be able to vote until 83 was my first official time to vote, I think. Yes. But I was really paying attention to politics since 1972. And the frustration that the 70s were I mean, the 60s were, assassinations and just the riots and racism and everything. And then the 70s was, war and, presidential embarrassments from, the Watergate, and then the Iranian and the energy crisis, and so many more things that were going on at that time that we see happening. And it just has it just has that same feeling to me. And when, of course, in 1981, Ronald Reagan would be sworn in as the president of these United States. And I know Jimmy Carter, to this day, he likes to take credit for getting those hostages released and things that were signed. But I will never back off the fact that I believe that Ronald Reagan coming in was the main reason that they said, you know what, we took this as far as we can go. He's not playing. I guess let Carter take his victory lap. I know he's a very sick man, been around a long time. We don't wish him any bad. Praying for him. But I saw weakness. It was just a little weak. We looked weak. Who puts up with this? And they did authorize a rescue operation. It was a horrible disaster. Embarrassment for the military, people being stepping down from that. It was just a very ugly, ugly time. And then the return of the hostages. But 53 diplomats and citizens held hostage in Iran from November 4th, 1979 to the release on January 20th, of course, again, Ronald Reagan, 1981, taking as hostage a group of armed Iranian college students. They supported Iranian revolution. Some of them became future leaders in Iran or Iran. They took over the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, and it was it is a pivotal point. Western media, according to Wikipedia, described it as an entanglement of vengeance and mutual incomprehension. President Jimmy Carter called the hostage taking an act of blackmail. I got other words I would use, and the hostage victims of terrorism and anarchy. In Iran, it was widely seen as an act against the U.S. and its influence in Iran, including its perceived attempts to undermine the Iranian Revolution with long-standing support of the Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who was overthrown in 1979. After he was overthrown, he was granted asylum in mid-U.S. for cancer treatment. And as I said earlier, they wanted him to stand trial for things that they said that his secret police did. The demands were rejected, and then finally the Shah left the U.S. in December 79, granted asylum in Egypt, and died at age 60 on July 27, 1980 from complications of cancer. 6 American diplomats who had evaded capture were rescued by a joint CIA-Canadian effort on the 27th of 1980. The crisis reached a climax in early 1980 after diplomatic negotiations failed to win the release of the hostages. Carter ordered the U.S. military to attempt the rescue mission, Operation Eagle Claw, using warships that included USS Nimitz and USS Coral Sea, which were patrolling the waters near Iran. The failed attempt was April 4th, 1980. Just a sad moment in our history. Just a very sad moment. And again, just the long lines for gasoline, the shortages. It was just a very bad time. We'll throw a couple of images up of this. You need to even look at them, but we do remember. Of course, the iconic scene there. There's the Shah. And then, of course, them going over the compound gate. This is American soil, people. It's American soil. This is not their gates. This is not their property. We honor those. Those agreements are to be honored the world over. You're not to go into embassies. This is an act of invasion and, yes, terrorism. And we didn't do anything for a heck of a long time. Really not much at all. Just a horrible time there. We see Khomeini in the picture there. being carried around. And this is a black and white photo. There's some other ones. A few more pictures. We see the burning of the American flag from the top, the buildings and stuff. The hostages being paraded around. The streets filled with college students. Many Khomeini pictures. And yes, the tangled, burnt wreckage of Operation Eagle Claw, and just disaster in the desert. And so, I mean, it just went on and on and on, it seemed like. I mean, that's a long time that people, you know, people messed with our property and our people. And when we see that, I mean, sure, it angers you. Absolutely, it angers you. How could it not anger you to see that? And it's just that feeling we have. So that failed attempt on April 24th, 1980, there was the death of one Iranian civilian and accidental deaths of 8 American servicemen after one of the helicopters crashed into a transport aircraft. U.S. Secretary of State Cyrus Vance resigned his position following the failure. In September 1980, Iraq invaded Iran, beginning the Iran-Iraq War. That's a 12-year war that occurred. The events led the Iranian government to enter negotiations with the U.S. with Algeria acting as a mediator. Of course, Carter claimed victory. He took a victory lap on this. I'm sorry. I believe it was the incoming president, Ronald Reagan, which made all the difference. The cowboy from California. And I just think that there was no way we know what he would have done. And we can it's not conjecture, because we know what he did to Omar Gaddafi of Libya. And he tried to play bad boy too. And when missiles were put in the palace and family killed, and our planes were flying sorties over the city, letting him know your city's fixing to become dust, he backed off and disappeared for a heck of a long time until his untimely and violent death at the hands of his enemies many years ago. But this was a sad moment in the history of America, and it just, I thought it was just juxtapose that against what is going on now. And I mean, even more things. And we go back and we look at Benghazi, and we see this. We're getting this quagmire of the Ukrainian-Russia war, the failures in the Middle East, American citizens being held hostage again, inflation and the rising cost of goods and services and groceries and all those things. It just has some similarities. A sign of weakness by our current administration, our own border being obliterated, and just people running over, kind of like those students climbing over the wall, except in this case there's no wall in most of it for them to go over. I mean, it just has that same feel to me as someone who's lived quite a few years on this globe. It's just very, very frustrating to see that type of thing, and just like that movie theater that is run down, that drive-in movie theater is run down and dilapidated, and it looks dead. That's kind of what it just feels like. It just feels like administration running on fumes, and in the hope of a new day. Ronald Reagan came in. He brought energy. I mean, he did help energy, yes, but I mean, an energy, you could feel it. The nation could feel it. It felt right. And I know there was people who didn't like him then, don't like him now. Ronald Reagan. He's one of my favorites. Did he make some missteps? Sure, every president does, but he brought a lot to the table, and that was a great moment to know that those hostages were going to be released. And I just remember that. And so, you look today and you're just like, wondering, you fear. I mean, if certain entities, and Iran has, of course, been active again, all in on the terrorism in the Middle East, supplying weapons, funds and everything to Hezbollah and others, I'm sure. But they've been sending millions to Hezbollah. Was getting ready for the October 7th attack. Iran's hands are all over that, and attacks on Israel, and Hamas taking of prisoners, several of those with dual American and Israeli citizenship. It's frustrating to see. It's very frustrating when you look at that, and you wonder what's going to happen. And so we're waiting on the new administration to take over, and we already feel like that some countries are backing off, and the terrorists are backing off because there's a new sheriff in town. It has that same feel. It just, like I said, not exact, but the feeling is the same. There's things going on that is just driving. Americans are just so frustrated. They showed how frustrated they are and how they came out and voted. They're looking for something, a return. This is the second term of Donald J. Trump, whereas for Reagan it was the first term. He did have 2 terms. Of course, the second term was marked by the Iran Contra affair and all that. But like I said, there were some missteps. But I look back and it was such a time. I mean, the same energy. They saw Ronald Reagan riding around on horseback with a cowboy hat on, cutting timber up and stuff with his chainsaw and stuff. They saw that. They look at a guy like, this guy walks in like a boss. That's the way Donald Trump does. He walks in like a boss. And he don't take no crap. And Americans are fed up. They're fed up with just being kicked around. We don't get kicked around. We do the kicking around. And not because we want to be a bully, it's because we just don't let little rogue nations push us around. But that's what's been happening. And they don't respect negotiation. They don't respect any of that. The only thing they respect is strength, and you have to show them that. Fortunately, you have to do that. You have to let them know you're still there, and you'll punch them in the mouth, so to speak. And that's what they knew would happen. And so I'm sorry, I just don't believe that that mediation was what brought them out. That was a part of it. But what really brought them out was the fact that Ronald Reagan was on the way, and they knew that meant bombing runs over Tehran if they don't release our, the hostages. And it just went on and on and on. I just remember it was every day. It was a dread, like, will today be the day? And of course the news is covering it, and you're seeing them, burn the flags and march these people around and torture and whatever else is going on. And you're just, at some point you're just, your head's exploding. Like, will somebody do something? There is a time when it is time for military operations to occur. You hate that, but you can't let it's like, you coming home and some enemies invaded your home. You got your family held hostage. You're just going to go into negotiations, or you're going to go into action. That's what we felt. And we see these countries, pushing us around. And then we see they've given these billions of dollars, pallet loads of cash to these people in Iran or Iran. And, and you're just like, this has got to stop. It's like, this is not common sense. And we're going to okay them to have nuclear energy. Why? So they can make nuclear weapons. Come on. You can't reason with them. I feel for the Iranian people. I feel for the young and how they're being, how they're treated every day. We saw the uprising. We saw how it was put down, and we didn't support that. Could have been a new day in Iran. So there's a lot of by the way, the reports are there's been a real revival. A few years ago, I heard these numbers. I don't know if they're still going on, but there's a lot of people coming to Christ in Iran. There's a lot of people. The gospel is being preached and shared, and there's a lot of people coming to faith. I think it's part of why the groundswell of what's happening among the young is a lot of them have heard the gospel. They're looking for. They've been freed from the bondage of sin. Now they want to be freed from the bondage of, the ladies for having to, cover completely up, and they can't have no freedoms or whatever, and they're sick of it. And these people go around with sticks and, beating them and in some cases killing them. And it's a different young people today. And they're ready for a new day. And so it's really, to me, it's iconic. If you think about, how this has happened. I mean, and like I said, these images are so frustrating. I mean, but we don't see, we still see some of that, but like we don't have, all these people being held hostage, but there are Americans being held hostage, and we're sick of it. Why is there not boots on the ground? Why is there not somebody who is, I know Israel's, trying to find all the people, but why are we taking second backseat to this? This is our people. They're American citizens too. I mean, why, you just don't see it. The debacle of the transfer of food. That is not a slow death. You don't hear much about that anymore. I mean, they're getting fired at from the beach, and people got hurt, and decent people who are trying to get food were beaten or shot or whatever. I mean, you got terrorists running amok, and they just were played by a different set of rules. So here we are. It's November 21st. We've got some weeks to go, and we're seeing. We're frustrated. We're frustrated at what's been going on. We're frustrated at what is going on in our country. We're frustrated every time we go to the grocery store. We're frustrated when we look, and see how we're getting pulled into stuff that we shouldn't be pulled into. Money and resources and stuff are being sent, around the world. Now we're firing weapons deeper in, or Ukraine is under our, approval, deeper into Russia. Russia's firing hypersonic missiles and threatening, to hit U.S. interests and stuff. I mean, it feels the same. I mean, it's different. Some players are the same, but then some are different. But it has that same feeling, and so I remember that. I do remember back in what that felt like as a teenager, and not turned to, I became an adult, 18 in 1983, and it was the first time I could vote, and I was so ready to vote. I was excited about. I watched those presidential debates and everything. Like I said, I watched politics since around 1972 forward, so I'd watched the end of the Nixon, the stepping down, the Gerald Ford years, and then Jimmy Carter. He's from my state. I thought, this is good. I didn't really understand some of it. Was not happy about how that went down, what was going on during that administration. It's a very hard time. Americans were frustrated. Long lines at the gas station, rationing, international embarrassments. And then Ronald Reagan steps on the scene. And it just all changed. And here we are again. And it has that same kind of atmosphere. Americans are, the patriots stepped up. The patriots got out and voted. The patriots have said enough is enough. You got administration that said it's a new day, new sheriff in town. We're gonna get these bad people out of here. We're not gonna feed them and clothe them, and we're getting them out. Amen. And I just, as I look back and I think on this, it just so reminds me of that time. Little bits and pieces, it just sort of comes back. And some of you may have been alive for that, some of you may not. But it has that, just that gut feeling of, we're sitting on, can't wait till the new administration. It's time to get rid of the failures of the past. It's time to move this country forward again. It's time to, get back our standing that we're supposed to have in the world. We've always had that. We're going to continue to have that. And we're not letting little jackleg countries push us around like that. I mean, it's got to stop. You got to let people know we're still, by gosh, the United States of America. You better keep your hands off our people. And, it's just, we're ready for that. And I think that's why I wanted to cover that tonight, just for a little bit of time with our show we called I Remember That. And if you don't remember it, it don't feel much different what's going on. The feeling in the country, the can't get certain things, supply chain issues, money issues, inflation, all of that. And then the international debacles. And Lord knows we've seen plenty of those. And it's time for a new day. So maybe just a few weeks away, a lot can happen. We're praying for the nation. We're looking for a change in our nation. We're looking for that American exceptionalism and pride and America first, And you feel that groundswell of support for that. And people are saying, this enough's enough. America got a bellyful, finally. They've been complaining and grumbling, but America finally stood up and said, that's enough. You know, that's enough. You know, sometimes we're lazy about like that as Americans. I'm not saying every American. I'm certainly not saying all of you. I'm saying Americans in general. Sometimes we're just really lazy. We get sort of fat and lazy, and they're just ignoring in our own little world. And all of a sudden, everybody's going, "Hey, wait a minute. Things ain't right. Why is there problems here? They're not paying attention." But America, you got their attention. Americans, their attention has been gotten, and they're frustrated, and they've said enough. And these rogue nations better back off. They better leave our people alone. And it's just this is a time of hope. It's an uneasy feeling in some ways, because people wonder what could happen in these last few weeks. What will our own people try to do? It was really sad that we even have to think about that. Well, what will these rogue district attorneys and attorney generals and judges and stuff do in different cases around the country? And people say, well, they're all going to be dropped. I'm not so sure. Maybe. But until I see that, I don't doubt anything. There's always the possibility. I mean, they hate the man. Speaking of Donald J. Trump, our president-elect. And you do have that concern about what can happen, what might happen in this day and time as we have hope, but we're a little uneasy about stuff. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody has this fear. It's sad that we have to exist that way, that we think what could happen in these last days of the Biden administration, and with the holidays coming, I think people really want to celebrate. I've seen Christmas decorations up earlier than normal. Some always do that, but I just feel it. I feel like people they're happy, they're measured, they're praying, but they're ready to celebrate the holidays. They're ready to go into a new year and see change. But we've got these little things going on right here as the last, this administration is this death throes, as we might say. I mean, it's thrashing about. It's dying, but it's in some ways we saw things we like, but in other ways we're looking at things where we're wondering, what is this? What are they capable of? What would they do? These people would hurt America just for the sake of hurting America. That's sad. Let's be praying for our nation. I remember that time. I don't know if you remember that time, 1979, the Iranian hostage crisis. It was a sick time, sad time. Just think of those families. There were people that died in regard to this. There were people that lost a good bit of their life due to this ridiculous thing, that we, and because of that, and because of the attacks on the two embassies in Africa, as well as the USS Cole and other things that have happened, the embassies have been strengthened around the world, and have done a much better job if they feel like they needed to get out, of doing that, or reinforcing an embassy. And I think this episode in 1979 was what really kind of led the charge for that to happen. We've probably not done everything we could at some points. We got lazy again, but then Nairobi and the other embassy that was attacked, and we've seen other attempts around the world. It is, we've really amped up the protection and the strike force and everything around our embassies, and we should, because there are dangers afoot. But that is American property. That is our soil right there when that embassy sits. They have no right to touch anything on it. And so we just let them do it. We didn't reinforce. We didn't get those people out. And a failed rescue attempt, embarrassment in the desert. But yes, the hope of a new day. Ronald Reagan stepping on the scene. Cowboy hat, his quibs, his matter-of-fact way of things, but his firmness. Leave America alone. And I think that we see a lot of those similarities. A lot of people look back and, they mention Reagan in the same breath with Donald Trump, and there's a lot of mutual respect there about toughness and about projecting, about being a boss, actually stepping out like a boss and saying that we're America. You know what? You better leave us alone. We try to help people. We're good. We try to help people all over the world, but you know what? You better leave us alone. You better leave our people alone. I feel like that's kind of where we're headed. I sure hope so. We want peace. We're praying for peace. We don't want to see innocent people slain, but we got innocent people being held, and enough's enough. And we need that to happen. So anyway, a little shorter program here, and we'll try to be back with another live here shortly. We'll see. Have a good night. God bless. Pray for our nation. Absolutely pray for our nation. It needs prayer. And the weekend's coming up. Maybe go to church. Hope you do. If not, join us Sunday morning for the Sunday morning in the Word, and also our prayer time Sunday. Those will be filled with prayers for our nation and what's going on. We just hope that it'll be a peaceful transfer between the two administrations. And of course, we'll be back in the morning. I hope to be back again. We'll be back in the morning for sure at 6 a.m. for the morning show. And then tomorrow night, Front Porch Talking. Weekend has Veteran of the Week. By the way, if you want your veteran honored, send us to the email you see. Send us the information about what branch of service, their name, and what years they served, and anything else you want to share. Please send those. We honor those every weekend. I honored 4 of my cousins this past weekend. One each in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. God bless them. They're all still with us, and they're my first cousins. I honored them. So we'd love to honor your family members too. Just send that information to the Southern Fried Podcast at yahoo.com. We will do that. Also, our Pet of the Week. We'll have one on Saturday. And then our political show Sunday night, SFP News Desk, Christian Conservative News. We'll continue to look at, of course, the news today. Matt Getz stepped down, already found Bondi coming in. And we'll look and see what the news is on those who have been nominated, and we'll look at who's looking good for confirmation, who might be a hard fight. And by the way, tonight, with just a little 4 minutes left in the fifth quarter, it's 19-18 Steelers over the Browns in the snow. Please turn it on and look at that beautiful snow pouring down there in Cleveland. And they're sweeping, trying to get snow off the field line so they can see if the inbounds are out of bounds. People are on snow duty. 4:34, Browns have the ball, 2nd down and 10. They've got to get at least a field goal here. They had the lead. Steelers came back. This has been a great game. This is the best in the NFL right here. No matter if you like the teams or not, this is the best. This is awesome. Of course, the story of Nick Chubb, touchdown tonight, and they broke that up. It's going to be 3rd down and 10. So we'll see. But we'll see in a bit. Hopefully, thanks for supporting the Southern Fried Podcast. Love it, each and every one of you. See you soon.